The porcelain cup shattered against the marble floor the exact moment Park Jin-woo raised his hand and pointed toward the exit, his voice cutting through the morning calm of the cafe like a blade. "Get her out of here. Now!" 23-year-old Bernice Williams stood frozen near the counter, a spilled latte spreading across the front of her thrift store coat, while the most powerful tech billionaire in America, a 28-year-old Korean magnate worth $14 billion, stared at her with open contempt. His designer suit, now splattered with coffee, cost more than she'd earned in the last 6 months combined. Nobody moved to help her. Nobody dared. The 50 people inside that downtown Seattle cafe understood exactly who Park Jin-woo was, exactly what his family's conglomerate controlled, and exactly what happened to anyone foolish enough to challenge him in public. Then the bodyguard standing directly behind him, a former Marine named Marcus Chen, caught sight of something on Bernice's left wrist as she reached down to gather her fallen belongings. A pale crescent-shaped scar running along her inner forearm. His face drained of color. The leather portfolio in his hand slipped from his fingers. "Mr. Park," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the cafe's ambient music. "Sir, you need to stop. Right now." Jin-woo spun toward him, fury replacing contempt. "What did you just say to me?" Marcus's hands were shaking. "That woman. Do you have any idea who she is?" The morning had started like any other in the Belltown district of Seattle. Tech workers streaming toward office towers, investment bankers clutching phones against the October chill. The city moved with the efficient indifference of people who had places to be and no time for distractions. Bernice had walked into Café Luminu at exactly 8:47 a.m., wearing the same navy peacoat she'd worn for 3 winters, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her canvas bag worn at the edges from years of use. She ordered a small black coffee, the only thing on the menu she could comfortably afford, and found a corner table near the window, reviewing handwritten notes for a meeting that could change everything. She had an appointment at 9:30 with the Seattle Community Foundation, a grant proposal. 6 months of work condensed into 12 pages, requesting funding for the nonprofit she'd been building alone in a basement office for the past 2 years. The organization served exactly 7 families right now. With this grant, she could serve 70. She had no idea that in 13 minutes, her face would be broadcast across every news channel in the country. Park Jin-woo arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. Conversations dropped to murmurs. Heads turned. Phones emerged from pockets, not yet recording, but ready. At 28, he was already a legend in tech circles. The second son of Park Industries, Korea's largest telecommunications empire, he'd been sent to America at 19 to prove himself away from his family's shadow. Within 9 years, he'd built an AI-driven logistics company worth $6 billion on its own merits, then merged it back into the family empire for a valuation that made headlines worldwide. He was also devastatingly handsome, a fact mentioned in every profile written about him, often before his actual accomplishments. Sharp jawline, perfectly styled black hair, eyes that seemed to calculate your net worth while you were still saying hello. He moved through the world with the fluid confidence of someone who'd never been told no. He entered with an entourage, 2 assistants, a lawyer, and Marcus Chen, the head of his personal security detail. Baristas straightened. The manager emerged from the back to personally oversee his order. This was a man accustomed to immediate deference. The collision happened in seconds. A young barista, new and nervous, turned too quickly while carrying a tray of fresh drinks. Her shoulder clipped another employee's arm. A full latte tilted, arced through the air, and splashed directly across Jin-woo's charcoal Tom Ford suit. The barista gasped, horror-struck. But Jin-woo wasn't looking at her. He was looking at Bernice, who had stood up at that exact moment, reaching for a napkin dispenser on the shared counter between their tables. In the split second before logic could intervene, Jin-woo's mind made a calculation based entirely on proximity and prejudice. The black woman in the cheap coat standing closest to him became the obvious culprit. The barista, young and white and already employed by an establishment he frequented, didn't even register as a possibility. "What the hell is wrong with you?" His voice carried across the entire cafe, sharp with a slight Korean accent that intensified when he was angry. Bernice turned, confused. "Excuse me?" "You just threw coffee on me." He gestured at the stain spreading across his jacket. "Do you have any idea what this costs?" "I didn't." Bernice glanced at the barista, who stood frozen behind the counter, and immediately understood the situation. "Sir, I didn't touch you. The spill came from—" "I don't care about excuses." Jin-woo cut her off with a hand gesture that silenced the room. "I care that you're careless, that you clearly don't belong in an establishment like this, and that you need to leave. Immediately." Silence descended like a physical weight. Somewhere near the back, a phone camera activated. Then another. Bernice kept her voice steady, the way she'd learned to keep her voice steady in countless situations where anger would only make things worse. "I didn't spill anything on you. If you just look at— Marcus!" Jin-woo didn't even glance at his bodyguard. "Escort her out." The cafe held its collective breath. This was the moment that would be dissected frame by frame in the coming days. Marcus Chen stepping forward, Bernice's quiet dignity as she gathered her bag, the faces of 50 witnesses doing absolutely nothing to intervene. Bernice looked directly at Jin-woo, her dark eyes meeting his without flinching. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but everyone heard it. "You're going to regret this more than you can possibly imagine." Then she turned toward the exit, her worn canvas bag over her shoulder, and that's when Marcus saw it. The scar. Crescent-shaped, pale against her brown skin, running along her inner left forearm like a signature he'd spent 5 years trying to forget. His entire world tilted. The portfolio fell from his hands, papers scattering across the polished floor. "Mr. Park, stop." Jin-woo spun toward him, his handsome features twisted with irritation. "What?" Marcus couldn't take his eyes off Bernice's retreating figure. "That woman, the one you just humiliated in front of 50 witnesses." His voice cracked. "Do you have any idea who she is?" "Some random person looking for a lawsuit payout." Jin-woo waved dismissively. "It's handled." "No." Marcus stepped between Jin-woo and the exit, a breach of protocol he'd never committed in 6 years of service. "Sir, that's the woman who saved my life." The cafe remained frozen as Marcus spoke, his voice low and urgent, telling a story Jin-woo had heard before but never paid attention to. A story that suddenly mattered more than any meeting on his calendar. 5 years earlier, Marcus Chen had been a decorated Marine sergeant deployed in disaster relief operations after a catastrophic earthquake in Haiti. He'd been part of a rapid response team working in Port-au-Prince when a 7-story medical clinic collapsed during a major aftershock, trapping 43 people, including Marcus and 11 other aid workers, under tons of concrete and rebar. The official rescue teams couldn't reach them. The structure was too unstable. Survivors were told to wait for specialized equipment that was days away. Marcus remembered the darkness, the screaming, the certainty that he was going to die in that collapsed building thousands of miles from home. And then a voice in the darkness. Young, female, American, impossibly calm. "I'm going to get you out, but you need to trust me." A 19-year-old college student named Bernice Williams had been volunteering at a temporary medical station 3 blocks away when the building came down. While professional rescue teams assessed the structural danger and called for backup, she had grabbed a headlamp and crawled into an unstable gap most experts considered a death trap. She spent 11 hours in that collapsed building, guiding survivors one by one through a route she mapped by touch and instinct, marking her path with strips torn from her own shirt so people could follow in complete darkness. At one point, a steel support beam shifted, and a piece of rebar tore through her left forearm, ripping through muscle and nerve. She wrapped the wound with her belt and kept moving. Marcus had been the 9th person she led out. By the time he reached open air, he was covered in her blood from where she'd braced him during the climb. He'd begged her to get medical attention. She'd gone back in for the others. When the last survivor emerged, Bernice had collapsed from blood loss outside the rubble. Military medics rushed her to surgery. Marcus had waited outside the operating room for 7 hours, desperate to thank her properly. But when he was finally allowed to see her, she was already gone. Discharged herself against medical advice, disappeared into the chaos of post-earthquake Haiti before anyone could get her full name or contact information. The official rescue report credited the U.S. Marine Corps Rapid Response Team with saving all 43 survivors. Bernice Williams wasn't mentioned. Marcus had spent 5 years searching for her, checking veteran forums, aid worker networks, disaster relief organizations. Nothing. Until 30 seconds ago, when he saw the scar on her wrist in a Seattle cafe. Jin-woo listened to the story with growing discomfort, watching his bodyguard's hands shake as he spoke. "You're absolutely certain it's her? That scar, the way she stayed calm when you were yelling at her, the way she looked at you before she left." Marcus's voice hardened. "I'm certain." Through the cafe's front window, they could see Bernice standing on the sidewalk, phone pressed to her ear, probably canceling her grant meeting. The meeting she'd prepared 6 months for. The meeting that would have funded her work for the next 3 years. Jin-woo's phone buzzed. Then again. Then continuously. His assistant's face had gone pale, scrolling through something on her screen. "Sir, you need to see this." Someone had already posted the video. 40 seconds of footage showing Jin-woo yelling at Bernice, ordering her removed, her quiet warning before she left. It had been online for less than 4 minutes and already had 30,000 views. The comments were brutal, immediate, furious. Who does he think he is? Another rich man who thinks money means he can treat people like garbage. Did anyone else notice he assumed the black woman did it without even looking? Jin-woo's jaw tightened as he watched the numbers climb. 50,000 views. 70,000. "Get our legal team on this. I want that video taken down." "Sir?" His assistant's voice was quiet. "It's been reposted on 47 different accounts. People are screen recording it. There's no taking it down." Marcus was already moving toward the exit. "I'm going after her, with your permission or without it." Jin-woo caught his arm. For the first time all morning, uncertainty crossed his perfect features. "Wait, we'll go together." Outside, Bernice had already disappeared into the morning crowd. By noon, the video had 3 million views. By 3 p.m., Park Jin-woo was trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. His company's stock had dropped 2%, and investigative journalists were already digging into his background, looking for patterns of behavior that suggested this wasn't an isolated incident. By 6 p.m., someone had identified Bernice Williams by name. The revelation came from an unexpected source, a Haitian journalist who'd covered the earthquake relief efforts 5 years earlier. She recognized Bernice from the Café footage and posted a thread connecting her to the medical clinic collapse, complete with archived photos showing a blood-soaked 19-year-old being loaded into an ambulance. The thread went viral faster than the original video. The woman Park Jin-woo humiliated in that cafe is Bernice Williams. 5 years ago, she saved 43 people from a collapsed building in Haiti. She nearly lost her arm doing it. She received no recognition, no medal, no headlines. She went back to her life and kept helping people in silence. Attached were links to Bernice's nonprofit, Williams Community Relief Initiative, a bare-bones website with a single-page mission statement and a donation link that hadn't been updated in 8 months. The organization focused on providing emergency aid to families displaced by disasters, particularly in underserved communities where institutional help arrived last. The nonprofit had 7 families currently in its program and a budget of $18,000 total. Donations started flooding in. $10, $50, hundreds of small contributions from people who'd watched the Café video and wanted to support the woman who'd stayed calm while being publicly degraded. Park Jin-woo sat in his downtown penthouse office, watching the story spiral beyond his control. His legal team had prepared 3 different public statements. His PR firm had drafted 4. None of them felt adequate for what was unfolding. "We issue an apology," his chief counsel suggested. "Generous donation to our nonprofit. Move on quickly." "That makes it look like we're buying our way out of accountability," his PR director countered. "We need a video statement, direct address to camera, sincere apology." Jin-woo ignored them both, his attention fixed on Marcus, who stood by the window overlooking Elliott Bay. "We're absolutely sure about Haiti? I'd stake my life on it." Marcus turned from the window. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" What Jin-woo did next surprised everyone, including himself. He ordered a full private investigation into Bernice Williams' background, not to find dirt, but to understand exactly who she was and why a woman who'd saved 43 lives had ended up running a nonprofit out of a basement with a budget that wouldn't cover his monthly car payment. The report came back 36 hours later, and it was damning in ways Jin-woo hadn't anticipated. Bernice Williams, age 23, raised in Atlanta by a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep them housed. Full academic scholarship to Georgia State University, where she'd studied international development and disaster relief. Graduated top of her class despite taking a year off after the Haiti earthquake to recover from her injuries and PTSD. Moved to Seattle 2 years ago specifically because she'd identified it as one of the fastest growing cities with the worst preparedness for natural disasters. Established her nonprofit with $12,000 of her own money, her entire savings, and had been building it slowly, carefully, without salary, working night shifts at a medical supply warehouse to pay her rent. The report included testimonials from the 7 families she'd helped. A single mother whose apartment building burned down and who'd been living in her car with 3 children until Bernice found her emergency housing. An elderly Vietnamese couple displaced by flooding whose insurance had denied their claim. Bernice had personally fought the company for 5 months until they reversed the decision. Every person interviewed said the same thing. Bernice never made it about herself, never asked for recognition, just showed up, did the work, and disappeared before anyone could properly thank her. The investigator's final note was simple. Subject lives in a 400-square-foot studio apartment in Rainier Valley. No car, no debt, no criminal record, no social media presence. Subject appears to be exactly who she claims to be. Someone who helps people because she believes it's the right thing to do. Jin-woo read the report 3 times, each pass making him feel smaller. Then his head of security brought him something else, something that changed everything. "Sir, you're going to want to see this. It's about the Haiti rescue operation." The document Marcus placed on Jin-woo's desk was a classified after-action report from the U.S. military's disaster response in Haiti, obtained through channels Jin-woo didn't ask about. What it revealed was worse than ignorance. It was deliberate erasure. The official record credited the rescue of 43 survivors from the collapsed medical clinic to Lieutenant Colonel Raymond Foster of the Marine Corps Rapid Response Team. Foster had received a commendation for exceptional leadership under crisis conditions. His photograph appeared in military publications. He'd used the rescue in his successful campaign for a congressional seat 2 years later. But the after-action report, marked confidential and buried in classified files, told a different story. Multiple witness statements from survivors, including Marcus Chen's own testimony, described a young female civilian who had entered the collapsed structure hours before military teams arrived. Medical reports confirmed that several survivors had blood on their clothing that didn't match their own blood types. Forensic analysis suggested the blood came from a single source with a significant arm wound. Lieutenant Colonel Foster's official statement claimed he'd personally led the rescue operation and made no mention of any civilian involvement. One line in the report stopped Jin-woo cold. Command determined that crediting civilian intervention would undermine public confidence in military disaster response capabilities. Recommend official narrative attribute rescue to USMC rapid response protocols. Bernice Williams had been erased from the record deliberately, not through oversight, but through institutional decision-making that prioritized optics over truth. Jin-woo set the document down carefully, his hands steady, but his expression dark. Foster is Congressman Raymond Foster now, Washington State, 9th District. Marcus nodded. He's built his entire political career on being the hero of Haiti. For a long moment, Jin-woo said nothing. Then, find Bernice Williams. Tell her I need to speak with her. Not about the café, about Haiti. She won't agree to meet you. Then tell her I have evidence that the man who stole credit for her rescue is currently sitting in Congress, and I'm prepared to make it public, with or without her cooperation. Jin-woo's voice was cold, calculating. But I'd prefer to do it the right way. Bernice agreed to the meeting on one condition. It happened at her nonprofit office, not his territory. Jin-woo arrived the next evening at a run-down building in the Rainier Valley neighborhood, the kind of area his driver usually avoided. The nonprofit occupied a basement space with exposed pipes, fluorescent lighting, and furniture that looked salvaged from office liquidation sales. Bernice sat behind a second-hand desk, her expression neutral as Jin-woo entered. She didn't stand, didn't offer her hand, just waited. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Jin-woo remained standing, aware that sitting uninvited would be presumptuous. I'm here because Marcus asked me to be, not because of you. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. You have 5 minutes. Jin-woo had prepared a speech, an apology crafted by professionals, focus-grouped and refined. He abandoned it entirely. I was wrong. Completely, inexcusably wrong. I made an assumption about you based on nothing but proximity and prejudice, and I humiliated you in front of dozens of people because I'm accustomed to never facing consequences for my actions. He paused. That's the truth. No qualifications, no excuses. Bernice's expression didn't change. Is that all? No. Jin-woo set the classified military report on her desk. I also know about Haiti, about what you did and what was done to you afterward. He watched her eyes move across the pages, saw the moment she reached the section about the official narrative being deliberately constructed to exclude her. Congressman Foster has been fundraising on your story for 3 years, Jin-woo continued. He's planning a run for Senate next cycle. His entire brand is built on a rescue operation he witnessed from a command post half a mile away. Bernice closed the report carefully. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to decide what happens next. Jin-woo finally sat down, uninvited but no longer caring about protocol. I can make this public. I have the resources to ensure every major outlet covers it. I can destroy Foster's career in 72 hours. And in return? There is no in return. This isn't a transaction. He met her eyes directly. This is me trying to do one thing right after doing everything else wrong. For the first time since he'd entered, Bernice's expression shifted, not softening exactly, but reassessing. You don't get to fix what you did to me in that cafe by giving me something I never asked for. I know. You don't get to make yourself feel better about your prejudice by playing hero now. I know that too. Bernice leaned back in her chair, studying him. Then why are you really here, Mr. Park? Jin-woo took a breath. Because Marcus told me you saved his life. And when I looked into who you are, I realized that everything I've spent my entire life believing about success and worth and what makes someone important is completely backwards. He gestured at the basement office, the second-hand furniture, the peeling paint. You're 23 years old. You've saved more lives than most people twice your age. You've built something meaningful with no money and no recognition and no support from anyone. And I'm 28, worth $14 billion, and the only thing I've built is a reputation for being smart and ruthless. You want absolution? Bernice's voice was flat. No. I want to understand how someone who's accomplished what you've accomplished ended up invisible, while someone like me gets celebrated for doing nothing that actually matters. Silence settled between them. Outside, rain had started falling, the sound gentle against the basement windows. You're not going to like the answer, Bernice finally said. Tell me anyway. She stood, walked to a filing cabinet, and pulled out a worn folder. Inside were rejection letters, dozens of them. Grant applications denied, partnership proposals ignored, foundation meetings that never materialized. I applied for funding to 17 organizations last year. You want to know how many even responded? 4. You want to know how many invited me to pitch in person? 0. She set the folder on the desk between them. I have a degree from a top university. I have documented proof of impact. I have testimonials from families whose lives were changed by this work. And I have exactly 0 institutional support. Why? Bernice laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're asking me why a 23-year-old black woman with no connections and no wealthy family gets ignored by foundations run by people who look exactly like you? Jin-woo said nothing. There was nothing to say. The same week I got my 17th rejection, I watched a startup run by 2 white guys from Stanford raise $4 million for an app that delivers energy drinks to college students. Bernice's voice remained steady, but her hands tightened on the desk edge. Their pitch meeting took 20 minutes. My work saves lives, and I couldn't get anyone to read past page 2. She sat back down. So when you ask me how someone like me ends up invisible, the answer is simple. The system is designed to keep me that way, and the system is protected by people who benefit from it never changing. Jin-woo absorbed the words, feeling them land like physical blows. What would it take to change it? More than one guilty billionaire with hurt feelings can offer. Try me. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Thursday, exactly 1 week after the Café incident. Jin-woo's PR team had fought him on every detail. They wanted a controlled environment, a prepared statement, no questions from journalists. Jin-woo ignored them and chose the same café where everything had started. Bernice stood beside him, wearing the same navy pea coat she'd worn the day they met. She'd refused his offer to buy her something new. "This is who I am. If that's not good enough, we don't do this." The room was packed. Every major outlet in Seattle, plus national correspondents who'd flown in specifically for this. Cameras lined the back wall. The viral video had now been viewed 47 million times. Jin-woo stepped to the microphone first. No notes, no teleprompter. "1 week ago, I stood in this café and publicly humiliated a woman based on an assumption I made in less than 3 seconds. I assumed she had done something wrong because she was standing close to me, because she was black, because she was dressed modestly, because in my world, people who look like her don't belong in spaces like this." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. His PR director looked like she might faint. "I was completely wrong, not just about what happened in that moment, but about everything I believed about worth and success and what makes someone important." He paused. Bernice Williams saved 43 lives during the Haiti earthquake when she was 19 years old. She nearly lost her arm doing it. The U.S. military erased her from the official record and gave credit to someone else. That person is now a sitting congressman. The murmurs became audible gasps. Phones appeared everywhere, recording. "I'm making public today the classified after-action report that documents Miss Williams' actual role in that rescue operation." Jin-woo held up the document. "I'm also establishing a $50 million foundation dedicated to supporting disaster relief organizations run by people who've been systematically excluded from institutional funding. Bernice Williams will have full control over its distribution." He stepped back from the microphone. Bernice stepped forward. "I don't want your money because you feel guilty." Her voice carried across the silent room. "I want you to understand why someone like me has to fight for every dollar, while someone like Congressman Foster gets to build a career on work I did." She looked directly into the cameras. "This isn't about one billionaire being racist in a cafe. This is about a system that decides who gets believed, who gets funded, who gets remembered based on what they look like and who their family is. I accepted Mr. Park's foundation offer on one condition, that it's run transparently, with public oversight, and that every dollar goes to organizations doing the work rather than to administrators deciding who deserves help." She paused. "Because the people who need the most help are always the ones the system ignores until it's too late." The questions from journalists came in a flood. Bernice answered them calmly, specifically, without theatrics. She named names. She cited statistics. She made the institutional failures impossible to ignore. Somewhere in the middle of it, Jin-woo realized he wasn't the story anymore. Bernice was. And that was exactly how it should be. The fallout was immediate and severe. Congressman Raymond Foster called an emergency press conference within hours, denying everything until a Marine Corps spokesperson confirmed the acceptance of the after-action report. His Senate campaign collapsed in 48 hours. Criminal investigations into stolen valor began within the week. 3 major foundations that had rejected Bernice's grant applications issued public apologies and offered funding. She accepted none of them. "You had your chance to help when it mattered. I don't need you now." The Café video, now viewed over 100 million times, became a cultural inflection point. Business schools used it as a case study in unconscious bias. Diversity consultants referenced it in corporate trainings. Late-night comedians built segments around it. Jin-woo's company's stock recovered after the foundation announcement, but he barely noticed. He'd become fixated on a different metric. How many organizations like Bernice's existed, invisible and underfunded, run by people the system had decided didn't matter? The foundation's first grant cycle received over 4,000 applications. Every single one was from an organization run by women, people of color, immigrants, or disaster survivors themselves. Every single one had been rejected by traditional funding sources multiple times. Jin-woo read them all personally. It took him 3 months. 6 months after the Café incident, Bernice's nonprofit had moved into actual office space with paid staff and a budget of $2 million. She'd expanded to serve 70 families and had opened satellite operations in 3 other cities. She still drove no car, still lived in the same 400-square-foot studio, still worked warehouse shifts twice a week because she refused to pay herself a nonprofit salary. Jin-woo had stepped back from daily operations at his company, handing control to a COO while he focused on foundation work. His social media presence, once filled with luxury cars and exclusive parties, now documented site visits to disaster relief operations and meetings with nonprofit founders. People assumed it was performative, that he'd revert to his old life once the scandal faded from public memory. Marcus, who saw him daily, knew otherwise. "You're different." Marcus said it during a flight back from Houston, where they'd visited an organization providing hurricane relief in low-income neighborhoods. "This isn't an act." Jin-woo looked out the plane window at clouds stretching endlessly. "I spent my entire life believing I was successful because I was smarter and worked harder than everyone else, that I deserved everything I had. And now? Now I understand that I was born on third base and thought I'd hit a triple." He turned from the window. "Everything I have came from advantages I never earned. The right family, the right education, the right passport, the right face in the right rooms. That doesn't make your work worthless." "No, but it makes it a lot less impressive than I thought." Jin-woo's expression was tired but clear. "Bernice built something meaningful with nothing. I'm trying to figure out how to use everything I have to help people like her build more." Marcus smiled slightly. "She'd tell you to get out of the way and let them build it themselves." "She has, multiple times, very directly." Jin-woo laughed despite himself. "It's the most valuable advice anyone's ever given me." The 1-year anniversary of the Café incident arrived on a cold October morning. Jin-woo had asked Bernice to meet him at the same café, same time, same table where it had all started. She'd initially refused, then agreed when he explained why. They sat across from each other with simple black coffees, the morning crowd flowing around them, completely unaware of the significance of the moment. "I wanted to apologize again," Jin-woo said. "Not because the first apology wasn't sincere, but because I understand now what I couldn't understand then." "Which is?" "That the real damage wasn't the slap or the humiliation. It was everything that moment represented. Every time someone like you gets dismissed by someone like me. Every time talent gets ignored because it doesn't come packaged the way we expect." He met her eyes. "I can't undo that. I can't fix the system that created it. But I can spend the rest of my life trying to make it a little bit better." Bernice was quiet for a long moment. Then, You still don't get it. Jin-woo blinked. What don't I get? I don't need you to save anyone. Neither do the thousands of people running organizations like mine. Her voice was gentle but firm. We need you to stop being an obstacle. We need you to use your privilege to open doors, then get out of the way while we walk through them. I'm trying to do that. I know, and you're better at it than you were a year ago. She smiled slightly. But you still think this is about you becoming a better person. It's not. It's about you recognizing that people like me have always been here, doing the work, waiting for people like you to stop standing in our way. Jin-woo absorbed the words, nodded slowly. Fair enough. They sat in comfortable silence as the cafe filled with morning customers. No one recognized them. No one stared. There were just two people having coffee, which was exactly what Bernice preferred. The foundation approved 73 applications this quarter, Jin-woo said eventually. Every single one led by someone who'd been rejected by traditional funders. I know. I signed off on them. Bernice's smile widened. Felt good. Better than revenge? Much better than revenge. She stood, gathering her bag, a new one, but still modest, still practical. Revenge would mean I'm still thinking about that day in this cafe. I've got better things to focus on. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Park Jin-woo, you're doing okay. Not great, but okay. Coming from Bernice Williams, it was the highest praise Jin-woo had ever received. The photograph that eventually defined the story wasn't from the viral video, or the press conference, or the foundation launch. It was taken by a freelance photographer 3 years after the cafe incident at a disaster relief site in Puerto Rico following a devastating hurricane. The image shows Bernice Williams, now 26, coordinating supply distribution in a flood-damaged neighborhood. She's wearing work boots and a volunteer vest, her hair tied back, completely focused on the logistics board in front of her. In the background, barely visible, Jin-woo is loading boxes onto a truck alongside other volunteers. No designer suit, no entourage, just another person doing the work. The photograph won awards for photojournalism, praised for capturing something essential about service and humility. But the photographer's favorite detail was something most people missed. Bernice's left forearm visible as she pointed at the logistics board, the pale crescent scar clearly shown. The scar that had once represented trauma had become something else entirely. Proof that surviving damage doesn't mean staying broken. That the deepest wounds can become the most important reminders of who we are and what we're capable of becoming. Bernice's nonprofit eventually grew into a national organization with 18 regional offices and a budget of $40 million annually. She still refused to take a salary above $60,000 a year, still lived modestly, still showed up to disaster sites personally instead of managing from a distance. Jin-woo never returned to his previous life. He remained involved in the foundation, but increasingly stepped back from public-facing roles, preferring to use his resources to amplify others rather than center himself. His social media following dropped by 70%. He considered it progress. Marcus Chen left private security entirely and became the foundation's director of operations, a job he said felt more like serving than protecting ever had. Congressman Raymond Foster served 18 months in federal prison for fraud related to his stolen valor claims. Upon release, he disappeared from public life entirely. And finally, after years of fighting to be heard, the world had started to listen. Not because she demanded recognition, but because someone had finally been forced to see the scar on her wrist and understand what it truly meant. That some of the strongest people in any room are the ones nobody notices until it's almost too late. The woman in the cafe taught the world a lesson that day, not through anger or bitterness, but through the quiet dignity of someone who knows her own worth regardless of who else recognizes it. And the billionaire learned something more valuable than any business deal he'd ever closed. That true success isn't measured by what you build for yourself, but by what you help others build for the people the world has forgotten. Some scars tell stories. Some stories change everything. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment of recognition to transform a lifetime of being invisible into a legacy that echoes far beyond any single life.